Oh, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I am Mr. Warren Hayes. It is February 28, 2023. We are going to be talking about pro wrestling for a couple of hours here, right here on youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes, where I record the podcast live every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. If you ever want to jump in, we hang around, we chat, we have a good time. And then you get all this great wrestling content on top of it. So if you ever are inclined to join us, please do. Otherwise, I appreciate you listening right now. Consider giving the video a like or a subscription even. Join the goodness. Join the Mr. Warren Hayes Show in all its glorious might. I don't know. But I'd love to have you. Love to have you stick around. And it's the same thing if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast application. The audio feed is out there. Whether it's on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever. Thank you for your support. Thank you for leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Thank you for leaving a 5-star rating on Spotify. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Just thanks all around. All these little things seriously help grow the channel, show some support, and I appreciate it a great deal. We're coming up to AEW Revolution this weekend, of course. Per usual, this Thursday, I will have my AEW Dynamite review that will be available for the last one. It'll be the last one before Revolution. If you want my full thoughts on AEW Revolution, I made a whole show, a whole separate podcast, just breaking down the whole show, previewing, predicting. It's available right here, so you can go ahead and listen to that as well. I also invite you to read my wrestling articles. I'm back to writing. It's still a very recent thing over on voicesofwrestling.com. I've written this week a post on Rhea Ripley and how the her recent booking at Elimination Chamber is kind of disappointing. I think they kind of missed a layup there. Why don't you go check that out and let me know what you think? I appreciate it in advance. Of course, you can also join the Mr. Warren Hayes Show Discord if you want to continue chatting about wrestling, meeting cool wrestling fans, getting into the inside knowledge and whatever. The link is in the description. We'd love to have you there as well. And you can also become a member of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show channel. Then you have access to members-only streams, which are for members only. There's quite a few of them, and we have a good time. So, again, it's another little way to show some support. But in the meantime, tonight, we're covering a bunch of stuff. We're talking about how CM Punk returning and the rumors of Kenny Omega leaving, all these rumors between these two gentlemen, how they all seem to synergize and interconnect. I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about some AEW news. Going to review the Noah Keiji Muto Grand Final Pro Wrestling Last Love Holdout Show, which happened a week ago, and preview the New Japan Cup, which is starting this weekend. So, thank you all for being here. Let's just get right to it. Let's go right ahead and start with the weekly wrestling inspection. All right. Hey, there's a bunch of stuff happening, but just before we started kicking things off and getting ready to do the stream and whatnot, we had a little tidbit of news being dropped here. I'm going to read an article taken directly from PW Insider, Twinsider, as we like to call it here. Endeavor CEO Ari Emanuel comments on potential interest in purchasing World Wrestling Entertainment. Yes, this is still ongoing. We still have more. This is still more news. Still the most newsworthy item that you can probably think of at this point. Let me read the article here. UFC parent company Endeavor held their fourth quarter and full year earnings call for 2022 this afternoon. During the call, Endeavor CEO Ari Emanuel was asked about the potential of purchasing World Wrestling Entertainment. He commented this as follows, quote, "As it relates to WWE, it's an unbelievable product. Vince is he's created a great business. I'd love to hear just how much he hesitated on that one. I'll probably go back and try to find the audio on that one. We've had a long-standing relationship with them over 2 decades. We're doing, as I indicated, the on-location business with them, the Endeavor streaming with them. You know, his business is really valuable, but we're not going to do anything as it relates to changing our leverage position right now. Interesting. So Mike Johnson adds a little context here. He says earlier in the call, it was noted that they are doing what they need as a company to deleverage their debt. So the implication was that they were not seeking to accumulate additional debt by purchasing WWE, which Vince McMahon reportedly is asking $9 billion for. So deleveraging, when it comes to big business speak, essentially means you want to get rid of your debt. So instead of making acquisitions, you are trying to pay back the debt that you have already. So that's essentially that's what Mike Johnson is reporting, is that earlier in the call they were saying, look, we're going to start paying back people we owe money to. That's our primary focus, trying to get rid of that, deleveraging themselves. So that's very interesting. Jason Lublin, the company's chief financial officer, followed up by noting they have over $750 million in cash in their balance sheet, and they are an inquisitive company and are committed to deleveraging and using everything they have to create the most shareholder value. That's, shareholder speak. That's PR speak. It's corporate speak. They're an inquisitive company. Fantastic. What does that mean, forsooth, in regards to the purchase, to the acquisition of World Wrestling Entertainment? If you listen to this and my very brief analysis and said to yourself, this kind of sounds like Endeavor's not interested in buying WWE. Well, you're not. I think that's a fair assessment. Is that exactly what they're saying here? Specifically, like, they could be doing a bit of misdirection for some reason. I don't know. But as it's, maybe their shareholders aren't exactly thrilled at the idea of them purchasing WWE for $9 billion if the company is carrying around a substantial amount of debt that needs to be paid back, and that's a fair shareholder. Concern. Of course, like I didn't have any chance to dive a little more into this. This was fairly breaking news as I was getting ready for the stream tonight. So I can't speak with certainty as to what Endeavor's financial situation is or isn't, and whether this, or how reticent their own board of directors is in regards to a purchase, because let's not forget, a board of directors' job is to protect the interest of the shareholders, of the investors. So it's starting to seem, I feel like we have set the stage, that we've unlocked the door, how about that, to the possibility that Endeavor will not be purchasing World Wrestling Entertainment. We had talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Can't quite remember if it was on a member stream or on the main podcast, but we did mention a couple of weeks ago that Endeavor didn't have the market cap to purchase WWE at Vince's $9 billion figure. They just didn't have the cash flow. It didn't make sense. This kind of compounds it. They're giving it a spin. They're giving it a fiscal responsibility spin here. In regards to saying, look, we're not considering WWE because right now we need to focus on our own debt. So that shows fiscal conservatism, which isn't necessarily a bad thing for investors. They want to make sure that they make money instead of lose it. So it's starting to seem like this will not be the option. What is left for WWE then? What's left on the table? We've heard we've heard echoes that Disney isn't necessarily interested. We've heard rumors that Comcast, NBC Universal, essentially, is not interested either, which would have been probably a very logical suitor. There was a lot of talk that WWE would be moving towards a partner that is not necessarily a broadcaster. That the partner would be that it would be a partner who would have media ties, but would not be a broadcaster themselves, which is why Endeavor was making a lot of sense. So if in the media landscape now, there's a couple of outliers, of course, but like CAA, for instance, but if you're looking at the landscape and kind of what's left, if you're kind of looking at the entire landscape and you're sort of like, okay, well, who's left? There's two options to a degree. Still, you can't rule out Saudi Arabia. Dave Meltzer recently was fanning the flames of the rumor that there's still a lot of interest from Saudi Arabia. So that's one thing, and it is noted that they do want to get involved more and more in entertainment in North America, sort of to sports and entertainment, to sort of clean up their image and wash away their poor human rights records and so on and so forth. That's a fairly common tactic. But the other option is Vince taking it private. Just going, all right, well, we're good, and I'm taking this all private once again, which is possible. And as it stands right now, these are, there's sports washing, yes, but entertainment is not necessarily sports. So, but yes, sports washing. So that's the thing, is that this is where we're at right now. Is Vince is going to have to make a decision in this regard, and I don't entirely rule out the Vince taking this all private again, realizing hey, you know what, I made my money. Running a publicly traded company is a lot of bullshit. You make a lot of money, but there's also a lot of bullshit. A lot of people I have to be accountable to, and I think we know. I think it's very clear that Vince McMahon is not one who enjoys being accountable for things. I don't think it's his groove. That's not his brand. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if this is where we end up. This is where it ends up, where WWE just comes back to being under the sole proprietary ownership of one dude, Vincent Kennedy McMahon, and will stay like that until the day he sheds his mortal coil. And I am still willing to bet, because it is the most logical situation, it is the most consequential thing. I'm willing to bet on the fact that if this indeed goes private, Vince puts himself back in charge of everything. We're right back to square one. He's going to be the boss, and he's going to have his nose back in creative. More than his nose, his whole entire body. He'll be sitting at Gorilla again. It'll be as if nothing changed. And this was all just a big scheme to make as much money as possible, as much money as humanly possible. And I appreciate everyone who, WWE fans and who say, no, this is not what he's doing. He said he's going to do this. As if they've been recently introduced to who Vince McMahon is. Vince has as I've said multiple times, the most surprising thing out of the entire 9 months was Vince McMahon actually stepping away from the company, as opposed to diving right in, right? That was the most surprising thing as opposed to him weathering the storm and, these scandals will all blow away. That was actually surprising. That was an un-Vince McMahon-like level of behavior. Now he's like, no, I'm back. I'm doing this again. I've listened to too many people. They gave me bad advice. They fucked me over. They tried to get rid of me. Well, you're not getting rid of me. And it's entirely an ego thing. And it absolutely connects with who Vince McMahon is. We just can't pretend that this is not at least in the cards. And this is not even a question of, this is not a question where, if it does happen and the circumstances happen and Vince gets back in charge, this is not even going to be a situation where I'm going to run around and pat myself on the back. This is just like, it is a reasonable expectation. It's not even going to be a thing where I say, I told you so. The opposite will be shocking and surprising. Because Vince ousted everyone that needed to be ousted. It's his show. I'm curious to see how all this is going to play out. Of course, it's been a couple of weeks even since we haven't had any news. Usually the sales news breaks on Fridays. Anything related to the sale, it usually happens on Fridays. Because then it won't really affect trading until Monday. And sometimes a lot of the news, sometimes there's news that happens that might create instant panic from investors, from shareholders, and they might sell. But then, you have a couple of days over the weekend to think about it, and maybe you're not as inclined to sell. You won't be as trigger happy when you get to Monday. So it's a tactic that not just WWE uses, a whole bunch of corporations use to just release that kind of, special sale information on a Friday so that the share doesn't take too much of a hit, or au contraire, takes a bump or is ready to take a huge bump when Monday comes around. See, in the chat we're saying, he wants full power. If you've been around, if you've followed Vince, as long as I have, and clearly like Motown Slim in the chat, we've seen the entire evolution of Vince McMahon. This is not a guy who plays well with others. He doesn't want to play well with others. He wants others to play with him. It doesn't necessarily mean that he's playing fairly or well. It's going to be by his rules. Just as simple as that. So, Endeavor signaling that they might be out of the running here. Be interesting to see. This might be a little seed here that might open up into some new news over the next couple of days. So we'll see what happens. So we're gonna talk some AEW rumblings. No, you don't become a billionaire by being a good person. No, absolutely not. So we're going to talk some AEW rumblings. Are you ready for this? I'm sure y'all are excited about this. Because we're talking CM Punk, we're talking Kenny Omega, we're talking returns and departures. And look, I feel this all sort of connects, but we're going to go one step at a time here. The CM Punk return train keeps on rolling down the track. Choo-choo. It is a locomotive of speculation, but one that seems to be picking up steam as multiple people constantly throw coal into its steam engine, blow the whistle as we go along. That's as much as I got for that analogy. But it continued this week with one Mark Henry over on Busted Open Radio. Because we're 6 months now since the Gripe Bomb. I still think that's great. That is the best way to refer to it. It's been 6 months since the Gripe Bomb. Tony Khan hasn't released CM Punk. He's not being used right now. Not quite sure what's going on. Seth Rollins, I believe, last week called him a cancer. Mark Henry hit the radio waves and said, hey, he is not a cancer. Quote, he's opinionated, but he's also a teacher and supporter. I've seen him do stuff he didn't have to do. He just did it because he loved the business and wanted to make wrestling better. Mark Henry also mentioned that, other things had happened. Things had happened and had been said that maybe some people regret, but we're all adults. We should be able to sit down and talk to each other like a bunch of adults, right? Quote, I think that he's good for pro wrestling, said Mark Henry. At the end of the day, he's good for business. He's good for the education of those young wrestlers he took a liking to. And as Henry continued in regards to his friction with the elite, quote, they're going to have to sit together without Tony. Just them guys and not throw hands. I love all parties involved. I would love to mediate the situation, but keep the issue on the issue and not make it personal. Make it about wrestling. Make it about the issue at hand and not the individual. Then you can solve it. I mean, look. Old CM Punker has been going around and he's been, dropping hints. He's been, what's the equivalent of vague tweeting if you're on Instagram? Vague-gramming? Is there vernacular for that? This is something that I've said myself months ago at this point, is that I can't believe that these people, these four guys, or whoever else is involved at this point, but essentially these four guys, the Elite and CM Punk, can't sit down and plot out something that would be good for the business, good for this thing that they're building together called AEW, and that might have a long-standing mark on the business, as opposed to, having this stupid friction keeping everyone from making tons of money. Because you have to be dead-brained, completely pilled to not realize that the Elite and CM Punk together in the same company is money. And we have the house show. We had not the house show, but the live attendance numbers during Punk's time in AEW to demonstrate it. We have the pay-per-view buys to demonstrate it. We have the merch sales to demonstrate it. AEW is doing fine as it stands right now. There's room for improvement for live attendance, but we're far from being a disaster. Merch sales are apparently still quite good. Pay-per-view buys are nailing predictions and whatnot. I believe right now there is that the company's in a good spot and would benefit if CM Punk were there. And we continue on this upward trajectory instead of everyone just self-sabotaging each other. I don't care if the Jacksons and CM Punk don't get along, or if Kenny and CM Punk don't get along. If they're not friends is what I'm trying to say. That doesn't bother me. I work with people on a daily basis that are not my friends, but with whom I recognize that my job is thankfully a little more secure, maybe a little easier because they are around to do their part of the job. It's the same situation here. And this is what Mark is saying. These dudes have to sit down and just get it out of the way and keep it professional. And don't have Tony around. And I agree. Don't have Tony around. Just have everyone just sit around and high-five each other and come to an agreement. But this is seeming more and more plausible as we start moving forward. This is becoming more and more, it feels more and more plausible that CM Punk is preparing some type of return to pro wrestling. Is it with AEW? Is it with someone else? I don't think it's look, I don't want to say I don't think it's with someone else, meaning WWE, because let's be frank here. Hey, JPJ, nice to see you. Welcome to the chat. I don't want to say that I don't think he's going to the other place because this is pro wrestling and legitimately anything can happen. I've speculated on this before. I think that CM Punk in WWE makes a lot of sense. CM Punk could be brought in on a part-timer deal, not unlike Brock, not unlike Cena, not unlike Goldberg, not unlike an upcoming Roman Reigns. Just have him come in for the big shows, spin a little angle and hit the bricks. That's legitimately all he really has to do. And he can make a boatload of money in the meantime, and he's not involved in creative. But something tells me that's not what CM Punk wants. And you can always argue, look, if Trips is in charge right now, let me rephrase that. Since Trips is in charge now, and he and CM Punk have, legitimate beef, they have an axe to grind with each other. I don't know if Phil Brooks wants to go back under the watchful eye of Paul Levesque, who's calling all the creative shots. Does CM Punk want Triple H? Does he want to put his career into the hands of Triple H, a guy that doesn't like him and who doesn't like him back? I don't know. But, there's always these little things, these little nuggets being sent out there. I think you have to be daft to believe that CM Punk is not going to make a return to wrestling at this point. He knows what he's doing. Things have unthawed tremendously. Doesn't mean they're still chilly. When you unthaw something, it's not instantly warm, right? It's still a little cold. Can be some friction there. And still be some friction with Kenny Omega. So let's get into some Kenny Omega talk then. We got some news that started popping around right and left in regards to the old Kenster. That's how I call him when I DM him. Hey, Kenster. I don't DM. Well, I DM him, but he doesn't respond back. Maybe because I call him Kenster. We got some news that, some reports, some stuff being talked about via Dave Meltzer on an episode of Wrestling Observer Radio earlier this week. Was talking about the speculation that some of AEW's contract situation, some of their top stars were up, right? And that WWE's been eyeing them. They're going to try to scoop up those contracts. He discussed the possibility of WWE being interested in making attempts to sign people currently signed to AEW when their deals are up, and vice versa. Quote, "It's going to be a real interesting year for Tony Khan because a lot of key deals are going to be up this year, and WWE is going to go hard for almost everyone good. And also, there's going to be WWE deals up as well. And he needs to make the product and the perception of the product look attractive enough to where guys on the other side will go, you know what? They're solid. They're financially stable. They're doing good. The schedule's easier. You know what? You know what I mean? But right now, I don't think perception of people in WWE is to go there. So he set this up here, and he's been talking about this for a bit, right? We've been getting a lot of news on that boy. But then we started talking, then we get Wade Keller weighing in here, talking about Kenny Omega reportedly being open-minded about joining WWE. Again, just as a quick refresher, because we've talked about this on the members-only streams previously. You should join a bunch of new members here today on the Mr. Warren Hayes Show channel, so you need to be there, or at least catch the VOD, right? We talked about this, but just as a quick refresher, reportedly, of course, Kenny Omega's contract was up in January, and AEW tacked on extra months for time spent on his injury, which is 9 months about. So this would free up Kenny Omega in the fall. So it's frankly, I mean, these are all reports, and it's unclear just how much time Omega has left on his contract, but apparently WWE are keeping a very close eye on the situation. Now, Wade Keller, on a recent episode of the Torch audio show, says Omega is open-minded. Here's the quote. I haven't independently verified rumors of WWE being interested in Omega. I have confirmed they're aware of Omega's open-mindedness to come to WWE. That's what I've been told. That he's open-minded to landing in WWE before his career is over. The attitude is not, I love AEW, I'm going to stay here forever. That is not apparently the belief within WWE. They don't believe that's Kenny's mindset at this point. Begs to point out here, by the way, just to make sure that we're clear here, Kenny Omega is not talking directly with WWE right now or anytime, right? Like, he has representation. It's Barry Bloom, if I'm not mistaken, who's agenting for his contract and his deals. Barry Bloom could be saying, whatever the fuck he wants to WWE, right? Like, that doesn't matter. It's not Kenny calling up Paul and saying, yeah, if you want me there one day, maybe. I'm not going to be, I'm not a lifer at AEW. He's not saying, Kenny Omega is not saying that. And there's, while I'm pretty sure Wade wouldn't be knowingly reporting lies or making shit up, who knows what his sources are saying. Like, he did say, I haven't independently verified rumors of WWE being interested in Omega. Let's continue. More quotes from Wade Keller. Omega is valued within WWE, from what I can ascertain, by people whose opinions count. But he is not seen at this stage as a wrestler who is so good in the ring that they are just going to do anything to get him, which is not WWE's MO regardless. I'm just going to take a pause here. This is not even a question where it's like, Kenny Omega is the greatest wrestler in the world, we want to bring him in. That's not WWE's modus operandi here. That's not what they're doing. What they're doing here specifically is saying, what they're doing here is just basically saying, we're very happy, we'd bring him in because he's Kenny Omega, because he's one of the top guys from the other place. We stole another top AEW talent away from them. That's why they do it. It has nothing to do, like, I appreciate what Wade is saying here, but WWE isn't bringing in Kenny Omega for the work rate. They're bringing him in because of his star power on one end, and because this is another notch on their belt where they can go, we attracted another one away from the slums of AEW kind of thing. Let's continue his quote here. He says, I think that they are very happy with their roster. I think they have a lot of great wrestlers who are at Kenny's level. Kenny would be a good addition. I know there is curiosity and intrigue about what they could do with him if they were able to direct him a little better, because his character work in 3+ years of Dynamite has not been particularly compelling. Well, I mean, okay, this is, Wade editorializing here to a degree that I don't quite agree with. And one last quote here. In terms of being a weekly TV series character, that's something that WWE would be, I think, excited to explore creatively with him, as opposed to wrestling. But I don't think he would come in and be seen as a guy that they are just going to track to headline WrestleMania like Cody has gotten. I think there's a belief there's more to Cody, more of a future, given Cody's age and wear and tear on his body being less, and just as a WWE ready character and promo, that there's more turnkey, main event, multi-year potential in Cody than Kenny. That I agree with. In the WWE mindset, of course. So, interesting little tidbits here. Now, since Wade spoke on this, Kenny Omega went on the Sessions podcast, Renee Paquette's podcast, talked about a lot of things. We're going to keep going down this track here. We're following Kenny's lead here. Of course, they talked about the gripe bomb, stating that, and he said that the general public will never learn the finer details of the event. This is his quote exactly. It's a shame the general public aren't ever going to know what went down and how it could have been prevented, how it could have ended differently. That's how things go in a big business operation. I don't think anyone is happy or proud that it happened or anything like that. I think across the board, everyone thinks it was a terrible situation that was unnecessary. In the meantime, he also says that he feels that backstage things are a little better. Quote, I really do feel the atmosphere has cleared up. There was a time where I can understand the confusion. It's sort of like, hey, we know that this thing happened. We heard this thing happen. It's all over the dirt sheets. Why don't we know what happened? And we're gone. And we're kind of sworn to secrecy. We can't say anything legally. So that was the poopy part. Kenny can't swear. So that was the poopy part where it was like, well, why doesn't anyone tell us what's happening? And then you're forced to form your own opinions. Of course, we all know that information was being leaked by parties involved on both sides of this fight. But I know what he means. Like, no one publicly stood up and said, hey, this is terrible. This is what happened. CM Punk bit me. Kenny Omega did a Savat kick. I don't know. What's important was no one was seriously injured emerging from that. And so I'm thankful for that. We've moved on with life. I'm completely fine. It doesn't dictate what I do, what I say. I'm sure the Bucks are in the same boat. I can't speak to the other parties. Hopefully they are doing well, and I mean that. Now, I don't know if this is intentional or not. I don't know if he meant, I can't speak for the other parties, but he said, I can't speak to the other parties, and that is very different. Is he still, is there some kind of gag order here? Some kind of sitch where Kenny Omega and anyone involved can't necessarily chat about it, that they can't be in contact with each other. I don't know. Look, I might be reading too much into this, but this jumped right at me when I was listening to it. Can't talk to the other parties? What do you mean? And it honestly, he could have just misspoke. I do it all the time. Y'all have been here before. Anywho, we've got, like he says, it's like I'm completely fine. It doesn't dictate what I do. Hopefully everyone is doing well on the other side. It sort of feels like they're not talking still. And probably that Tony has some kind of edict. It's like, you guys can't talk to each other until I say you can talk to each other. So we'll see. But he's like, I'm fine and I'm fine and I'm fine. It feels not unlike what we're getting from the CM Punk side of things. Maybe not from Punk directly, but from Punk sympathizers, where people are like, look, why can't we all just get along kind of thing, right? It's kind of one of those, it's like, hey, everyone just chill out. I'm chill. Are you chill? They are setting something down here. And this is coming straight from Kenny Omega's mouth. CM Punk has not done any statements so overtly, right? So they are setting some things in motion. But then in the same podcast, and you should listen to it because there's a lot of stuff. I'm trying to give y'all as much context as possible, but please listen. If you want to hear straight how Kenny is expressing himself and how he's dealing with the news, I would love y'all to take the time to listen to it. Because he also talked about his future in wrestling. Of course, with all these WWE rumors that have been swirling around. So here's a quote, massive quote here, but I want to make sure we get this down for proper context. Because I'm not in the clickbait business. I'm not here for the shock headlines. I want to make sure we get some proper definitions, some proper understanding of how things are going here. Sometimes the first thing that pops into your mind is probably how you really feel. This is Kenny talking, in case you're not following. Why would you not be following? The first thing that came to my mind wasn't, a venue. It wasn't a title. It wasn't some kind of accolade. I feel like whatever it is that I can contribute to wrestling, I want to be able to help people in the next generation realize their potential as quick as possible, or quicker than I was able to. If I can help give anyone advice or to help push them into a certain direction that can lead to something good for them career-wise down the road. That is where I'd like to see myself. I don't feel I have too many goals or aspirations on my own anymore. Very interesting. Let's continue. I feel like, am I wasting my time here? Do I not even deserve my position if I'm not looking for some sort of measure of success for myself? Like, am I being ungrateful almost? So those thoughts even still fill my head a little bit, because I felt that when I was motivated to win the G1, when I was motivated to win the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, or win the Match of the Year award, or win Technical Wrestler of the Year award, or even throw in a random thing like, boy, wouldn't it be nice if I could somehow win PWI 500? It got to a point where I was just kind of creating goals to achieve, just to have something. And I guess as the checklist started to fill up, and so I'm thankful and I feel so fortunate that I was able to, it became much less about me and became more about, well, I've got this resume now. I know that I'm breaking down, and I know there are people that have 10 years on me or 15 years on me. They have all this time to work with, and they can much easier with much less of a struggle get to where I am today, and maybe I can save them some mental anguish. Maybe I can save them from being away from their family for a couple of more years if I can help them a little bit. That's just the sort of position that I feel I'm in right now. A lot of words to not really answer a question. Like, what is next for you, Kenny? Like a lot of our favorites these days. You know, Kenny Omega, Bryan Danielson. There's a lot of talk around them that we're spinning down right now. We're taking a few step backs. We're chilling out. We're not gonna excuse me. We're not going to force this any more than it should. Getting old, broken down. I just want to help the next generation. This is all stuff that a guy who's thinking about the tail end of his career usually says. Now, what I do gather out of this, which is very clear, is that Kenny feels he's done it all. Kenny feels like, I had all these goals set up for myself and I did them. So what's next for me? Like he said, it got to a point where I was just kind of creating goals to achieve, just to have something. And I guess as the checklist started to fill up, it became much less about me and became more about, well, I've got this resume now. How can I help? And that's interesting. Does this give me any assurance? Have I picked up any assurance here that Kenny is going to re-sign with AEW in whatever, 9 months, 5 months, whatever time it is? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. If anything, it's compounded the seeds of doubt a little bit. It's like, okay, there's still much ambiguity here. He's clearly weighing options. The biggest outlier here is him talking about how broken down he is, how, kids coming up behind him have 10, 15 years on top of him and, basically saying, I can't follow these kids anymore. They're coming up and they're raring to go, and why would I hog up a top spot? I'm paraphrasing, maybe doing a little analysis on the words here, but I feel this is what he's saying. So if he feels like he's taken up a top spot in AEW, that could be served to someone else, like a Ricky Starks, for instance, an MJF, who is currently one of the top guys, a Hangman Adam Page. What's Kenny got left to offer AEW? Body breaking down, so on and so forth. The WWE style, like I said, to follow up on Wade's Wade's comment, right? Remember when he was talking about how how WWE isn't interested in him necessarily as what he brings as a wrestler. So we know that. See, Kenny Omega wouldn't have to go out and pull these insane matches that we are expected to see him do, because that's what he's done his entire career. We don't have to see it anymore because the WWE house style is incredibly different. It's not necessarily focused on work rate. We've seen numerous accounts of people heading to WWE, if only just to work a style that is not as dramatic or violent or hard hitting as in Japan, for instance, or some other versions of indie, because their body was breaking down. Sami Zayn is a good example of that. You can't blame a guy to want to continue doing what he loves, have a foothold in the business, continue to get paid an ample salary, but be in a position where it's like, look, I've done everything and I have left everything on the table. for you guys and gals and non-binary pals. It's time for me to move on. It's time for me to think about me a little bit. And I think that's fair. I think that's absolutely fair. And quite frankly, in how he presented this, and a trip over to Triple H land would make a lot of sense. But, there was a but. Kenny Omega is a professional wrestler. He's a worker. Professional wrestlers lie. And they lie very well. And they say things in a certain way, in certain circumstances, to promote themselves. They're always working. And this is something that I can't emphasize enough. And this is not like this is not a dishonest thing. I'm not trying to sit here and say, well, it's because they're awful people. No. This is the nature of the business. Everyone lies in pro wrestling. Also, everyone dies, but everyone lies. We were told Kenny Omega, when he left to nurse his injuries, he was battered. Of course he was. He was messed up, broken down. He had spent like the better part of the year just with 17 million titles, wrestling all over the globe in high-level matches across the planet. Of course, he needs some time off. We're said he's injured. And when he comes back, we're told Kenny is never going to be able to wrestle the way he wrestled. He's not going to be able to do it anymore. His back, his shoulder, his knees, his neck, everything is just like falling apart. And you remember, as much as I do, those first few matches when he returned with the Elite, those first trios matches, when he had the compression camisole on, the compression jacket. That's not a jacket, you know what I'm talking. And he was all taped up, and he was flubbing moves, and everyone was like, Kenny's washed, he's done. But my spidey sense was tingling. Like, is he? And as he started warming up and things were advancing, we started seeing these sparks of the old Kenny Omega, the Kenny Omega we all knew. And I'm like, this is bullshit. He's working us. And I still think he is. You're going to tell me that you're going to pull off a match like you did last January, one of the greatest professional wrestling matches I have ever seen in my life. You're going to tell me, oh man, I'm broken down, I can't do it anymore, got to start thinking about my body. Come on. I'm not saying that he's not wrestling in pain. Look, obviously I don't talk to him. If it wasn't obvious, it is now. I don't talk to him. I don't know. But I've been around pro wrestling long enough to be on my guard. This felt a little too earnest and a little too contradictory to things that we've been seeing out of a best of 7 series where the boys were tearing each other up. And I've got someone here telling me, oh, well, I'm breaking down. Body ain't what it used to be. The old gray mare. You know what I'm saying? When I have 60-plus-year-old Keiji Muto trying to, convincing me that he can still go. Knees like sawdust. And I've got this guy over here telling me, putting on the match of the year. The bar was set at Wrestle Kingdom this year, and you're going to tell me 1/6 of the greatest best of 7 series of all time in pro wrestling. I don't know if I can do it, fellas. There's a couple of ways you can be looking at this. He could be just like gently setting the stage to head on out into to head on out into the down the path towards the Elysium that is WWE, where it's like, you know, the style isn't as hard. I have to work a couple of pay-per-views a year where I really have to put it on, otherwise I'm cool. That's not why WWE, that's not why the fans don't watch for the work anyway. And I get a fat paycheck. It's fine. It's fine. He could be doing that, or he could be just working the shit out of us. And that is also fine. And I'm not, you know, pushing one narrative more than the other. I'm not sitting here saying, I can't see Kenny Omega living. Because let's go back to January 2022, when I myself was sitting here in front of this microphone telling you, I don't see Cody Rhodes leaving. This is all a work. And I was out of step on that one, because the competition in pro wrestling hasn't been around for so long. There's a lot of reflexes I lost. There's a lot of intuition that was left aside. Now I'm sharp. I'm back, baby. And on this point here, I don't know what's going on. All I'm telling you is that it can go two ways. It's a work. He's working us, or he's setting the table to leave. Either way, he's going to get a good result for him personally. Because if he does decide to stay, fans are going to go, oh, thank God. He had been setting these breadcrumbs that he was leaving, and we were so afraid. The angst inside us was building so much. Now, serotonin, dopamine, come get me. Let's go. Make me feel good. Or he goes to WWE, and he feels good about his decision. He goes and he works differently. The WWE fans are going to have a riot with this. Good for them. Or you know what? There's a third way we can take a look at this too that's also very simple. He just might be in the midst of negotiations right now, and he doesn't have a clue what's going to happen next. Now, I talked about this, and I saw your super chats and so on. I promise everyone I'm going to get to yours, going to get to them in a second. But I just want to wrap this all up here. Because I did say, you know, I sort of grouped all of this together. The CM Punk returning talk, this Kenny Omega leaving, you know, all of this coming together. Because I feel like it's all fitting into a narrative of sorts. That has been alluded to, where Tony Khan, and look, Dave said it, and he said it previously on other occasions, where Tony Khan this year has some very important business decisions to make. And he's going to have some very difficult decisions to make. And this started, like 2 weeks ago, maybe 18 days ago, when Dave hit the Wrestling Observer Radio and started talking about stuff where you're like, he's being so vague. Why is he being so vague? He knows stuff, and he's not saying what the stuff is because he knows it and he's not on record. He doesn't have it on record, or he's been sworn to silence. He can't say a thing, but he knows things, and he's starting to let things slip in regards to what he knows. Regarding Kenny Omega, regarding CM Punk. So we're going to go back here, and this is something that we did talk about on the members only stream. And I swear, members only stream, you got to be a member to be there. We talk about this stuff all the time. It was on an edition of Wrestling Observer Radio where he was talking about Vikingo and Kenny Omega wanting the match, and the problems that AEW has with AAA, now AAA. And that might complicate things from getting the match that Kenny Omega wants to do in North America, which is Vikingo versus Kenny Omega. And this is where Dave's talking about, would have been nice. Would have been nice, would have been nice if Triple A didn't do the thing with FTR and having Dragon Lee announce on the night that they win the titles, the AAA tag team titles off of FTR, announcing on that same night that they're going to WWE. That pissed off AEW and all that. He talks about that, but then he adds this. He says, Kenny wants to do that match, the Vikingo match. He wants to do that match, but there's a lot of political implications to it. And then again, with Kenny, there's a pause. I mean, there's another pause. There's a lot of moving parts right now that are going on in AEW. Okay, Dave? Especially when you have another pause. I don't know. Next 3-4 months of AEW's and another pause. Now, Dave is scrambling through his brain, trying to make sure he doesn't slip up, doesn't say anything he's not supposed to, but he's on the cusp. He's seeing things being connected here, but he can't talk about it. Let's continue. After that last pause, he goes, when CM Punk heals up, Tony's at that point really got to make a decision, and there's no good decision. Both decisions are bad decisions, in different ways. What both decisions does he have to take? What are you talking about, Dave? We were talking about a Vikingo Kenny Omega match and the reasons why it wasn't being put together. Then all of a sudden, you're starting to talk about Tony Khan having to make a big decision. There's 2 decisions to be made. Both of them are bad. It says there's repercussions for both, and there's people who will be furious at either one. Especially when I want to talk about that weakness and the babyface side. People will jump and go Punk. I don't know if Punk can be a babyface in AEW right now. Why is he talking about this out of the blue? Why is Dave suddenly, all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, talking about CM Punk coming back as a babyface? I don't know if he can come back as a babyface. If you're not, you're an astute listener right now. I'm sure you're starting to connect some dots. I don't know that he can't. He's a good talker and everything. The injury thing, he's been injured a lot. The age, actually, to me, is something, because right now, you've got 2 masters. Number 1 with AEW, when you want to be working about the future, it's all about the future because you're in for it for the long haul. You're not in for it for a quick buck. I'm sure y'all are gathering the same thing as I am right here. Dave is seeing a connection between Kenny Omega and CM Punk. He said it himself. Kenny wants this match to happen. There's a lot of political implications. And then again with Kenny, there's a lot of moving parts right now. Tony Khan is, in the next 3-4 months going to have big decisions to make, 2 big decisions, and neither of them is going to be good. Some people are going to be angry. Oh, and by the way, I don't know if CM Punk can come back as a babyface. You're like, Jesus, what is this stream of consciousness of stuff that you are clearly in on, Dave, but that we don't have any clue about? So we're just sitting here listening to you ramble on. And I think the safe assumption to make here is that what is the big decision that Tony Khan has to make? Bring back CM Punk or not? Is that it? Because he keeps on talking about, can CM Punk move numbers? Well, he did it first, and then when he came back, blah, blah, blah. Then he starts talking about the business stuff. But can he bring, is what he's talking about here sort of ties into what Kenny is talking about, what it's starting to feel like. The Elite are back. CM Punk is warming up the audience. He's turned the car on. It's minus 20 outside. He's turned the car on to let it start warm up a bit. Not ecologically friendly, by the way. Don't do that. FYI. But I don't know if you see the picture that's connecting in my mind right now, but it really sort of kind of feels like CM Punk coming back might be mutually exclusive to Kenny Omega coming back. It feels like it's a one or the other type of situation. You bring me back or you bring the other guy back. You bring the other guy back, happy trails to me. Or don't bring the other guy back and I stick around. Isn't this what it's sort of feeling to you? This is, and I'm not confirming, we're speculating here, but it sure as hell is starting to feel like that. I'm going hard on this Dave reporting here on what he's saying on Wrestling Observer Radio. And again, Dave misspeaks all the time. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's absolutely positively like driven into the ground here. But it really does. But we know he's connected to the Elite. We know he gets information from the Elite. And when I say we know, he's never outright said it. But when you realize the type of information that he's privy to, you're like, all right, listen. And how he slants his reporting sometimes, look, it's clear, right? It is a fair observation to make. So if he's talking to the Elite and he's getting this information here, and suddenly he's like talking about, well, I don't know if CM Punk can come back as a babyface, and I don't know if he draws so much money. I'm like, wow. Who is he making a case for? Why is he making a case for? How is this related to Tony Khan making a big decision that might be unpopular? Whichever one he decides, there's going to be people who are going to be angry about it. What is he talking? This is what it kind of feels like. Kenny Omega hitting the media circuit, dropping some stuff on the Sessions podcast, setting the table for a departure. It all starting to seem a little more logical, right? It's all starting to feel like it connects together. Like these are not that we're all playing on the same game board, and it's not just different games happening. We're all playing the same game of Magic the Gathering, as opposed to, a couple of nerds paired off on either side. These things are going to be connected until we get some form of resolution here. So again, I can't say for certain that Kenny Omega's leaving or staying. No one can. Don't fool yourselves. No one can at this point. Can't say for sure that CM Punk is returning. Again, don't fool yourselves. But I think it is a fair assumption. I think the clearest assumption to make is, as it stands right now, and 9 months, if that's the amount of time that's left, is a long time. You can have a baby. You can have a full human child grow in your loins in 9 months. So that's a while. In 9 months, there are so many different paths that this can take. But as it stands right now, I think it is fair to assume that CM Punk and that Tony Khan might have to choose between these two top stars moving forward. He may have to make a difficult choice to say, I can only have one of these two guys on the roster because they will not work with each other. This is how it feels on February 28, 2023. Couple of other things really quickly in regards to AEW. couple of extra little newsy notes that are turning the world of wrestling upside down. Dax Harwood, the Observer Awards were released last week to much acclaim from everyone. They were received with level-headedness and love and appreciation. Nothing bad, nothing terrible. Just positive discourse all around. Especially from Dax Harwood, who, essentially didn't say a thing, but he tweeted out a couple of screen captures from the official AEW account on Twitter, showing that the account had congratulated Bryan Danielson and who else? I can only remember Danielson. Anyway, a couple of winners like that had congratulated the Briscoes on winning Feud of the Year, but no mention of FTR anywhere, of FTR winning any awards. And he tweeted those 4 screenshots with the following caption: "Tell me April's around the corner without telling me April's around the corner." Now, I here's something. The fact here that he's saying, April, tell me when April's around the corner, is related to the fact that allegedly, this is what he had told, I believe, Sean Ross Sapp in an interview, that FTR's contracts were up in April and that they were thinking of taking a break from pro wrestling, or maybe, working under contract, taking some dates here and there, but that'd be it. So tell me April's around the corner without telling me April's around the corner, saying essentially, hey, you know what, my contract's coming up and I just might not resign. Little bitterness. And of course, got a lot of people heated, right? Got a lot of people upset. And you know what? Here's the fantastic thing, right? It's like, I find like the new work in pro wrestling is using smart fan knowledge against them, against the smart fans, essentially, to work them into believing things. Wait, Warren, are you saying that this is a work? Brother, my spidey sense is tingling. I do not think Dax Harwood would be going this hard on social media or, on his podcast or whatever if he was truly thinking about leaving. And he has said in the past a couple of times, says Tony Khan is a great boss. He's a boss. We don't always get along, but, we always find common ground. I respect him. So on. He doesn't have a poisonous relationship with Tony Khan. And I don't think it would have got to the point where he's airing grievances on social media. I don't want to say that I think this is I don't want to say that for sure this is a work. But I'm going to tell you, by the time that you listen to this, because we're recording this on a Tuesday, this is, released everywhere on Wednesday. By the time you listen to this, tomorrow's Dynamite with the Casino Battle Royal thingy for the tag teams for the pay-per-view. That might, if there's a Joker there, I wouldn't be at all surprised if FTR shows up. Wouldn't be even remotely surprised. If you listen to my Revolution, if you listen to my Revolution preview, which I released this weekend, you already know my thoughts on this. You already know how not highly I think about the four-way tag team situation, and I kind of feel like it's missing a bit of pizzazz. I understand that the Acclaimed are extremely over and people love them, but between the Guns You know, and I know there's fondness for Jeff Jarrett, but there's nothing in this match that screams at the top of my lungs, this is a pay-per-view match. You bring FTR back in, you have them show up on Wednesday. They're the Joker, surprise entrant, whatever you want to call them. Place goes apeshit. And they have unfinished business with the Guns. Like, it all connects. It all makes sense. I would entertain, if I were you, listeners of the Mr. Warren Hayes show, the A+ audience of the D-list podcast, I would entertain the possibility, the thought that FTR is going to show up on Wednesday and that they are going to be at the pay-per-view, and that all of this stuff about Dax being grumpy about his position and getting people all mad is, guess what? Workers working. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, I think now the new work is to make people feel like they're not being worked. And to connect to a previous point, this even adds more credence to this idea that CM Punk might be coming back. And one thing that I didn't mention, and that we all have to keep in mind, is that FTR, or what do they call them? CM Punk, CMFTR is the thing, right? CM Punk and FTR versus the Elite is a money match. That is money left on the table if you can get all of those 6 men to come to an understanding and sit around. That is the biggest match you can put on in AEW in North American soil. I'd even argue there would not be a more instantaneously heated, anticipated match than that right there. Not even close. And if you think Tony Khan doesn't know it, you're a dope. If you don't think Kenny Omega doesn't know it, you're a dope. Everyone knows it. Everyone knows it's a moneymaker. Everyone knows that whatever show they book this on, it is an instant sellout. I promise. This is something that has to happen. So Dax being all grumpy in his corner, with the grumpiness of CM Punk maybe returning, and then the grumpiness of we all just have a bunch of malcontents just wanting to go after each other. I am here for that. See, Elite versus CMFTR, loser leaves AEW, kick them out of the territory. It books itself. There is also news that has appeared in regards to Vickie Guerrero. Apparently, she and Tony Khan have come to an agreement that that she is going to finish up her contract. This is a report coming out from Fightful. All Elite Wrestling manager Vickie Guerrero is set to finish up with the company, and they will not renew their contract. And good for her, and good for us. I don't know what Vickie Guerrero brings to the product at this stage in AEW's advancement. I remember when she was brought in, she was put as the mouthpiece of Nyla Rose. And Nyla was, and everyone was like, well, okay, well, good, because Nyla needs a mouthpiece, so on and so forth. But then we all realized, once they started giving the microphone to Nyla Rose, that Nyla Rose does not need a mouthpiece. She is a terribly charismatic human being. Great on the mic, has extraordinary comedic timing. Sharp-witted. incisive. She doesn't, if anything, I would say her time with Vickie Guerrero dragged her down. Vickie is an old school talker, and I know like she's a manager, and I know people like the excuse me stuff, and or at least I feel like a lot of people do. I don't, never did. She's a very okay talker, but she hadn't been doing it for a while, and I feel she lost a couple of steps. If anything, divesting Nyla Rose of Vickie Guerrero is an excellent idea. Let's get Nyla back on TV without Vickie and let her fly, let her soar. I don't know why she's not used more. I have no idea why Nyla Rose isn't used more. I don't know why Nyla Rose isn't involved in this AEW Originals, non-AEW Originals feud that they have going. Like, she is a perfect shoe-in for this. What is going on? I'm off track here. But look, I just wanted to point this out in a sense that I don't think, brought in Vickie. She had her little shtick. I don't think it ever connected with the audience. I think she's too much of a relic in the past. I don't think she's kept up with the business. And look, here's the thing. And I believe we talked about this at the time. If you're going to bring in a talker in AEW, which is the home of exceptional promo people, if you're going to bring in someone to talk, just talk, not wrestle, not take bumps, talk, they better be good, because the bar is high. You bring in Mark Sterling, who is extremely charismatic, has a great personality, and he knows how to get someone over. He's fantastic. You bring in Stokely Hathaway. Stokely is the redefinition of managers in the 21st century. Wrestling manager, like, he's absolutely the guy. Vickie as an okay talker, that doesn't cut it. It just does not cut it. Had a good little run, but that's it. We're good. We're good to move on. Last Tuesday, on the day that I record the Mr. Warren Hayes show, was held Keiji Muto's grand final pro wrestling last love holdout show, which is, for all intents and purposes, Keiji Muto, the Great Muta's last wrestling match ever. He's had a couple of instances, but from what we understand, he's got this. That was the last match. That was the last show. The last match filled up the Tokyo Dome last week. So I had talked about, Muto retirement number 76, exactly. Number 77 might be coming up. You never know. We have so that's it. So last Tuesday, I was able to squeeze in the double main event. I wanted to watch it at those two top matches before coming on the show, but I hadn't watched the entire card. I gave you some thoughts. Now we're going to dive a little deeper into it, into the show. Again, that happened on February 21st, 2023, the Tokyo Dome in a little town called Tokyo. Just a few people live there. Sparse living conditions. The attendance has been marked at 30,096 people in the dome. Not a sellout, but an impressive number. It is, if I'm not mistaken, it is the biggest gate. No, actually, I know for a fact, it is the biggest single night gate for a show in Japan since the end of the pandemic, or even during the pandemic, pre-pandemic. It goes right to the start of the pandemic. It outdrew Wrestle Kingdom this year, I think, like by 4,000 to 5,000 people. And no, this isn't a knock. I'm not saying, oh, New Japan in the mud. New Japan drew like 26,000 people in the dome. Like, that is impressive. Don't get me wrong. But it's going to be, so far it is Japan's biggest gate of the year. And again, like I said, it's not a knock on New Japan. This was to be expected. It's something, this is Keiji Muto saying, bye-bye last love holdout, or whatever it is. No, but this is him retiring. And, it is difficult to understate the importance that Keiji Muto had in pro wrestling in Japan. I was listening to WrestleNomics earlier this week, where they were talking about the business side of the show, but the guys made a really good point. So I'm paraphrasing it in the sense that he is of a generation of superstars in Japan, right? Of the Masahiro Chonos and so on and so forth, people who transcended outside of strictly pro wrestling and were icons. The comparison to him being the Hulk Hogan of Japan is not entirely wrong, but not entirely spot on either. This guy doesn't have the same career path, not exactly the same type of reach, not exactly the same type of body of work either, but still there's a lot of things that you can, there are a lot of parallels that can be drawn between both of their careers, especially when it comes to being superstars, transcendent superstars in the business. And Muto might be one of the last of that generation, where a lot of fans who just dropped out of wrestling in Japan, just stopped watching, but then heard, hey, Keiji Muto's retiring. Keiji Muto, holy shit, that guy was great. Let's go see his retirement show. He's one of those. He's one of these last holdouts, one of these last transcendent stars that is disappearing from pro wrestling. I mean, it's Keiji Muto. He could come back on a whim if he wanted to, because that's how he operates, and he's a guy who can absolutely do that. He has meaning that he has the star power and the influence to do it. But the point being here is that he's there's something very unique about what's happening, or what happened that night. He truly is a last of a generation, last of a group of wrestlers who, some of them are still wrestling, like some of the older guys from that era, there's a couple of them still knocking around. But we are truly wrapping up a period in history. That's significant. So it's no surprise that it drew such a big gate for New Japan. For Noah and everyone involved. So I mean, there's, like I said, there's no real shock here. You can absolutely add on to the fact that it was a crossover show. There were, all sorts of promotions that were represented. A lot of the Cyber Agent promotions were there. All Japan, New Japan. And I think it's important. And I've talked about it, but I think it is important to underscore once again how different culturally all of this is, as opposed to these types of crossover shows, how they happen, as opposed to here in North America, where here it's more of a sink or swim kind of situation. Everyone wants everyone else out of business. But when the pandemic hit, I don't know if y'all remember this. I don't know if you recall when there was a special, I'm exaggerating, like it's not exactly that, but like a special subcommittee on the future of professional wrestling that was created within the government, or and they had, it was representatives, presidents, owners, whatever, from all different promotions, from Nuge and Noah and All Japan and Dragon Gate, and they were all, promoting this idea that, that, while we're in the pandemic, we all have to stick together. We have to make sure that wrestling as a whole continues to grow, that we continue to promote wrestling, and that when we do get out of the pandemic and everyone is able to get back on their feet and come back to shows, that wrestling itself will be are going to be elevated. The whole, and if it's basically the idea of if the water level rises, all the boats rise at once, right? And they're putting their money where their mouth is, because that's what they said they were going to do. They said we are going to have to work together, and this is outside of like a crossover show between Stardom and New Japan, which is the same company. We had again this year, Noah and New Japan putting on a show, Wrestle Kingdom 19. The Noah New Japan show that happened in January, that not only was a crossover show, but set up an angle for this show. And then on this show, you have everyone coming together once again. Like I said, you had Dragon Gate, you had DDT, of course, you had the cyber agent companies, you have All Japan coming in, New Japan on top of that. And look at what's happening in a couple of weeks. In a couple of weeks, like next week, what am I even talking about at this point? Hiromu's All-Star Junior Festival, where, again, it's like people from all of the promotions coming together for another crossover show. As a fan of Puro, you look at this and you're like, this is how it should be. This is how it isn't. This is something that I've been trumpeting for a long time to a lot of the North American audience who aren't necessarily used to this. When people coming from outside of AEW show up on AEW and you're like, well, who the fuck is this? This is how it should be. This is how a healthy wrestling business should function like. You should be able to bring in people, even if it's one shot. Even if it's for just a one shot or an appearance for a couple of weeks. Look, last week we had Aussie Open show up in the AEW Battle Royal. Were they going to win? No, who cares? And they're going to be back this week. We even have fucking Commander, who's going to be on Revolution. He's going to be on the Face of the Revolution ladder match, making his AEW debut, a North American television debut. How is this not exciting? Even if you don't know who these people are, doesn't that keep things fresh? Doesn't that keep things exciting? So I'm looking at what they're doing in Japan, and they're putting their money where their mouth is. Like, look, everything has to get back on track. We need to get people back out to shows. We all have to put our best foot forward. Let's all rise the water level together. That's not to say that there's not politicking and people are trying to make the most out of their money here. New Japan comes into this situation. What do you think happens? They have the higher ground. They're the biggest promotion in Japan, like by a long shot. It's not even comparable, right? And the second biggest promotion in Japan, as far as live gates go, is Stardom. So they've got the higher ground in all of this. So if Noah calls New Japan and says, hey, we'd like you on the show, could you send us could you send us a Okada? Would that be cool? New Japan is saying, sure, but he's winning. He's pinning your champion. And what is Noah's going to say? Oh, well, I'm not sure this is a good idea. No. Noah's going to yes, sir. May I have some more, sir? That's what they're going to do. We're not being stupid. This is not all this is not charity work. New Japan's the Dawn right now. So the Dawn barks the orders. This is how it's going to work. It's your show. You handle your show, but you want my guys on. This is what's going to happen. It's the same thing that's going to be at at Hiromu's show, which is sponsored by New Japan. Master Wato has a singles match. Who do you think is winning that fucking match? The brilliant thing here is that if we had this perspective in North America of elevating wrestling as a whole, as opposed to everyone pulling on the blanket and trying to fuck up each other's business and calling arenas to cancel paramedics and all this fucking bullshit. Instead of, one promotion deciding, trying to smother everything else, I promise you, the wrestling business would be healthier in North America, would be bigger, be more shows, more opportunities for talent to make a living off of what they're doing. I promise you. This is why a lot of us contend that Vince McMahon was not the guy who changed, he did change pro wrestling forever, but not for the better. He made it substantially worse by being the only game in town, by being the guy who would swallow everything up. The business was doing massive business before he started killing the territories, before he gobbled everything up. Vince did wonders for WWE. WWF at the time, but WWE now. Vince did everything to make WWE better, and that's what happened. But the business unequivocally suffered. There are less people on a week-per-week basis going to live wrestling shows than there were in the 1970s and the 1980s. And that is observable. It is quantifiable. It's not even something I'm making up that I'm pulling out of my ass. A healthy pro wrestling business would have shows running all over the place in arenas all over the country, and people could just go. But no, there's one game in town. There's been one game in town for 20 years. So Vince did good by WWE. He changed he changed pro wrestling, absolutely not for the better. He changed WWE for the better. He made WWE a billion-dollar company, a media juggernaut. That's all good for him. It's all good for his company. But it has been a blight on professional wrestling, and it is hard it is difficult to counteract that. Anyway, this is not where I wanted to go with this. This is not where I wanted to go with this, to a degree. The point here is we're getting these crossover Apero shows, and I hope we get more of them. I hope we have more talent exchanges as the months go on. I hope we get Best of Super Junior. I hope we get guys from Dragon Gate, from All Japan, into Best of Super Juniors, into the G1. New Japan had their relationship with GLEAT last year. That gave us El Lindemann tearing it up on Best of Super Juniors and in Super Junior Tag League. Super Junior Tag League was so much fun last year. Wrestling is better when this happens, when there's these exchanges, when there's these opportunities where everyone can mix and match, and it's fresher for the wrestlers, and you can tell the wrestlers enjoy it because they're not always wrestling the same dudes. Apparently, and I haven't watched any, and I regret it right now. Apparently, Fantasticmania, right now is tearing it up. Apparently, it's an excellent show, an excellent tour they're having right now. I gotta dive into it this weekend. I gotta find time. I gotta fabricate time. Was everything great on this show? No. Was this a good show? Yes, it was. Well, see, I'm glad to hear it's been great. But this was a good show. And if you go into a show like this with a mindset of discovery, And you're like, I'm gonna see some guys that I've never wrestled before, that I've never seen wrestle, just because I don't have time. Or guys that I've seen, but I haven't seen enough of. Let's get into it. On the pre-show, we had Daiki Inaba and Masa Kitamiya defeating Yasutaka Yano and Yoshiki Inamura. That's fine. Fine little opener. Tag champs won. I don't have much to say about it. Then we had the pre-show 8-woman tag team match. And all Tokyo Joshi Pro, excuse me. Tokyo New Joshi Pro. Oh, just Tokyo Joshi Pro. A bunch of ladies from there. Miyu Yamashita, Rika Tatsumi, Shoko Nakajima, and Yuka Sakazaki defeated the team of Maki Ito, Miyu Watanabe, Mizuki, and Yuki Arai. Fun little match, by the way. It was a lot of fun. Maki Ito did her thing. Did corner punches with a mic in her hand, cheering out to the audience. Slingshot senton by Nakajima as well. Nakajima tries to ram Maki Ito's head into the buckles, but Maki Ito has some Samoan in her. You don't do that to Maki Ito. She no-sells, fires up. Kokeshi follows. Giant swing by Watanabe as well. She even does a double body slam as in a nice little show of strength. Yamashita is in there with what she does best. Just some strikes, flying lariat, swinging backbreaker follows by Watanabe. Wheelbarrow German by Yamashita. Tornillo body slam by Mizuki, and it probably has a name, but I don't know what the name is. She sort of jumps and she spins in place against her opponent. She's like she's shredding into her. Full Nelson slam by Arai and Nakajima with a murderous cannonball to the floor. Sakazaki gets the win for her team. The springboard 450. I thought this was a fun little match. Hey, here's something I haven't known. Well, look, it doesn't really bear mentioning because I think everyone who's watched this show agrees, and anyone who's watched a Noah show agrees. Noah really does have fantastic production value. They ride the line between great sports-like presentation, which I think New Japan is untouchable on, and the spectacular part of it, right? I think they found the balance between the two, whereas WWE is the complete opposite of a sports-based presentation. It's all theatrics. It's all spectacular. It's all about, the flash. There is flash in a Noah show, in the way it's shot, in the way the stages are set up. There is flash. But when you get to the nitty-gritty, and then they don't compromise on that either. So there's a good balance there. You can't say anything about that. And that's a point. This isn't even a hot take. Everyone's talked about it, right? The hot take I will give you, though, is that this commentary table stinks. Like, it's not great. And I think it was particularly egregious during the Tokyo Joshi Pro match, where neither Mark Pickering and I can't remember the name of the other dude, they had no context. They provided no context, no background information, or very little, like very, very surface, very basic stuff regarding any of the women here. Let's go back to the crossover show, the New Japan Stardom crossover show, where you had Kevin Kelly and Chris Charlton welcoming the women, the Stardom fans, the Stardom wrestlers, welcoming them to New Japan viewers with background information and details about their career and how did they get here and their stablemates, their factions, whatever feuds are going on right now. Just rich with information where you're like, I understand, I get it, I see what's happening here. I'm able to make connections, talking about stuff that happened in the background. These two dudes, I think we're three, but there was another guy who's not a typical member. I don't know. This commentary table provided nothing for any new viewers of Tokyo Joshi Pro. Nothing. And I understand it's a pre-show. That's still not an excuse, because the idea of these crossover shows is to bring new eyeballs to the product. You might be tuning in to see Keiji Muto in his last match, but hey, by the way, wrestling is doing really good in Japan right now, and look at this great women's promotion, Tokyo Joshi Pro. I think it was dismal. I think they did them a disservice. And it's weird because it's all the same parent company. These are both Noah and TJPW are cyber agent companies. Why didn't they do it? I was utterly unimpressed. But, oh, hey, let me tell you, when they got into the dudes though, oh, geez, they went deep in there. Boy, did they go deep. They made us understand that Kento Miyahara and Katsuhiko Nakajima, they had history. Oh boy, we broke that one down. They don't forget the history between Amakusa and Hiromu Takahashi, right? Missed opportunity. At best, missed opportunity. At worst, a disservice. Jake Lee, Anthony Green, and Jack Morris, they are also known as GLG. What does GLG stand for? Good looking guys. They defeated the Takashi Segura, Timothy Thatcher, and Satoshi Kojima. Look, there's not much to say about this match, outside of Thatcher eating a boot and then getting pinned by Jake Lee. Like, literally, that's what happened. Well, I mean, literally. Thatcher tags in. There's an exchange or two. Next thing you know, he eats a boot to the face by Jake Lee. He covers him and he's done. I think Jake Lee in pre-shows is funny. I think Jake Lee in a pre-show is humorous. I'm not going to pretend that I'm well versed, that I've watched everything that Jake Lee has done, but I know, I followed the Cliff Notes. Kept an eye on him from afar. Wouldn't exactly call his tenure in All Japan all that successful, despite the fact that he was the guy. I don't know, man. Then out of the pre-show and into the main card, Chris Ridgway, Daga, Eita, Mayata, and Yoshinari Ogawa defeated Alejandro, Atsushi Kotoge, Junta Miyawaki, Saiki Yoshioka, and Yohei. Again, I don't have much to say about this match. It was a little slow. It picked up once Hayata and Yohei started going at it. Ridgway wins with the submission. Didn't do much for me. It's fine. It's an opening match. It's all right. And we get the DDT match. Mao, Shunma Katsuma, Toei Kojima, and Yuki Ueno, I think is actually how you pronounce it, Ueno, defeated Tetsuya Endo, Yuya Kuroku, Hideki Okatani, and Takeshi Masada. Fun. Solid work here all around, although I felt it didn't have much spark to it. This is often the case, with these multi-man matches. You can work through it more, and you're able. You can do it. These multi-man matches, everyone tries to get their shit in, and there's not much real flow to it. Endo did some of his high spots and a space flying tiger drop, which is always cool. Ueno ended up looking fantastic in this final sequence. He might have been one of my favorite standouts on this entire show. I was not super familiar with his work, but what I think one of the commentary compared him to a proto or a proto Kota Ibushi, right? I think he was a bit of a standout in this match and in the entire show. A lot of, as far as discoveries for me, this was fine. It was all right. And we got a 6-man tag team match. Noah versus Dragon Gate, the Noah team of El Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr., Naomichi Marufuji, and Ninja Mac defeated the Z-Brats, made up of Diamante, Kai, and Shun Skywalker. Good work here. Again, just stuff necessarily not necessarily flowing. Double brainbuster by the Dragon Gate guys on Ninja Mac. Look, again, I don't think I'm necessarily going to break this one down either, because I don't want to stretch this tonight's show on to 4 hours either. But I thought this was a lot of fun, and you know what? I hadn't seen. I'm hearing a lot of good things about Dr. Wagner Jr.'s work in New Japan. Excuse me, in Noah in Japan right now, and apparently he's been very good. And I thought he commanded everything here. Seemed very in control. I enjoyed this. Thought it was fine. Fine little match. Starting to build up here. Then we get to one of the first true high points of the show. The 6-man tag match. Noah versus All Japan. Noah represented by the Congo team of Nakajima, Kendo, and Soya. They defeated Kento Miyahara, Yuma Aoyagi, and Suwama. And this ruled! Good old-fashioned tension and frustrations and people just laying it on each other. It's fucking ruled, man. Built on the history between Miyahara and Nakajima. They teased that they were going to start off until Soya gets tagged in, and then it breaks down on the floor straight off the bat. It was a lot of fun. Soya and Aoyagi chop each other until Aoyagi's dragon screws him. Then Suwama comes in and he just drops Soya with a chop. The belly-to-belly suplex. Miyahara and Nakajima, when they finally get at it, they're trading some strikes. Nakajima, of course, has developed a bit of a reputation of being a bit of a shooter, maybe going a little hard here. I thought these guys worked really well together. Apparently, like this is the thing. Is there really heat between the two? Or is it worked? I don't know. I thought they did a fantastic job at not making it clear for me where it's like, okay, I know these guys are buddies. Like I couldn't really tell. They probably are. Or look, what am I saying? I don't know if they are. And if they're not, if they hate each other's guts, like you kind of felt it was, these guys are fucking pros. These guys are pros. Get a flipping back forearm and a bulldog by Nakajima lands right on the mush. Lariat follows. Keno comes in with some kicks that Suwama no-sells. And Keno gets slapped to hell because of it. Then we get a series where everyone is landing German suplexes on each other and strikes, and everyone is down, and it's just fantastic. Trio of German suplexes by Aoyagi and a brainbuster on Keno. There's some back and forth between the two, but Keno lands the BFS for the win. Just a fantastic match. Fantastic brawl. Just great stuff. Guys dropping each other. This is what you love about Puro. Everything is right there. And sure, there might have been tension between the companies, the guys coming into the All Japan guys coming in to benefit from the exposure of Noah, whatever. They could be underneath. I love this shit. This is basic stuff. You don't have to overthink wrestling. You really don't. This was great. Highly recommended. Then we had the Nasaga Rongai retirement match. Now, Nasawa Rongai somehow finessed, no surprise here, finessed his retirement match on Keiji Muto's retirement show. course, Nasawa Rongai, former Juggalo Championship Wrestling Heavyweight Champion. He did wrestle for JCW quite a bit, and I'm joking. But JCW for a while did put on like some great underground shows that people might not think of, but probably see the fact the Juggalo in there might be turning people off, but it wasn't all trash. Anyway, Rongai had a very extensive career, wrestled in Mexico, a lot in the U.S. Indies, and also in Ring of Honor, PWG, even in TNA for a while. But I guess, his home promotion will always be All Japan Pro Wrestling, and this is where he grew in influence. He became a backstage influencer, a politiker. And he's been using that a lot since, for good and ill. Not going to get into that right now, but this was a match in the sense that there was an opening bell and a closing bell. And Ishimori was in this match. I didn't even tell you, right? Mazada, longtime friend of Nasawa Rongai, they were tag teaming against the Bullet Club team of Taiji Ishimori and Gedo. The bookers got to book themselves on the show. Ishimori was Nasawa's student. That's why he got the match. And Nasawa ate a bloody cross for the win. Like, this lasted under, this was about 4 minutes, under 5 at the most. Lots of sad faces. I was like, all right, let's move on. Is the fact that Gedo still wearing Switchblade gear suspicious? Or was that a send-off too? Hiromu Takahashi defeated Amakusa. First ever IWGP Junior Champion versus the GHC Junior Champion. And this was a blast. Amakusa lands an insane corkscrew dive on Takahashi. Hiromu then lands a lariat, rope hanging leg lock, tosses Amakusa into the rails. Top rope flying hurricane run is blocked by Hiromu, but Amakusa reverses it into a DDT. 450 splash follows by Amakusa as well. He rushes Hiromu, who flips him into the corner. Just a great spot. Amakusa does some great float over work throughout this match. Right into a thrust kick. Just hard to explain. Beautiful stuff. Snap suplex by Hiromu and a punch by Amakusa. Lariat by Hiromu follows. Hiromu flashes a mask that Amakusa gave him years ago. When he retired the mask, pop-up. Hiromu does a pop-up. Not quite sure what he was going for because Amakusa lands knees. Huge knees on Takahashi. Amakusa rolls out of a time bomb with a beautiful series of roll-throughs. A time bomb by Hiromu lands. Amakusa kicks out, lands a lariat, goes for the time bomb too, and that one puts him away. Again, New Japan wins. New Japan is the high ground here. Great stuff. Amakusa has been tearing it up. And here's what I'm excited about, because Hiromu seems to be getting back into a groove where he's like, I'm going to really put my back into it when I've got some big matches here, when I've got some big time players. Because there's a lot of times where I'm a huge Hiromu Takahashi fan, and there's a lot of times where recently where I was looking at him and I'm like, where's the spark? Where's the effort? Why aren't you? Where's the Hiromu that we once knew? And again, this is a guy who's, he's banged up. His legs are banged up. The neck, of course. So he's not as suicidal as he once was. Let's put it that way. There's a way to explain it. But I got some spark. We've been getting some spark by Hiromu. I thought, his match with Sho a couple of weeks ago was fantastic. This one here was great. I thought the match that he had at the crossover show with Noah was great. Maybe Hiromu's feeling it too. Maybe he's like, look, I'm not just wrestling, Robbie Eagles and Desperado and Taiji Shimori over and over and over again. Now we're starting to branch out. So, that's good for wrestlers too. Now he's got the festival coming up. This has all been good. Like the junior stuff in Japan since Super Junior Tag League has been extremely compelling. Because we have really some standout performers. Amakusa's been fantastic. A lot of the New Japan guys have been, El Desperado. There's nothing. He's on top of his game. TJP and Francesco Akira have just been excellent, remarkably excellent. We're in a good spot when it comes to junior divisions. Now, I know Noah doesn't treat its juniors all that well. It's a bit of a piss break booked type of division, but look, you can always hold out hope. I'm still trying. I'm letting Noah warm itself up to me. I want to get into it. I really do. They made it so hard last year. Pushing the old guys, burying some of the younger guys, or the guys who can go. Anyway. Then from the double main event, the big one, Kazuchika Okada defeated. And oh my lord, did he ever defeat Kaito Kiyomiya, excuse me. Did he ever whoop this lad? Kiyomiya came out first. He is the GHC World Champion. This is a Noah show. And he came out first. Dome crowd is stoked for this. Why? Because the angle was so good. Okada was the asshole the entire time. We talked about it last week. Didn't want to give Kiyomiya the time of day until Kiyomiya kicked him in the face. Then Okada was like, all right, you son of a bitch, it's on. And they brawled throughout the match. This is what happened at the Noah New Japan crossover match. And that led to this. That led to Kazuchika Okada saying, I don't have to give this kid the time of day. Kiyomiya says, let's get rid of the time limit. I am going to beat this guy, and it'll take as long as it takes, but I'm going to beat him. Okada's like, let's keep the time limit. Time limit or not, you're not beating me. That doesn't matter. We're not even going to reach the time limit. Boy, that was prophetic. Doesn't show up to the press conference, shows up in Osaka at a Noah show to beat the shit out of Kiyomiya. Okada was a perfect heel for the Noah fans here. Perfect. And to tie into what I was talking about earlier, they set up this angle on a New Japan Noah show. They knew what they were doing at this point. This is what we were leading to the double main event of this show. So not only is it, hey, let's work together and do some crossover, let's build intra-promotional angles. This shit rules. There is nothing that makes me more excited than this kind of stuff. It is unpredictable. It is out of the beaten path. You can give me 10 bloodline angles. I will take this Okada Kiyomiya shit any day of the week. This speaks to me. This is what gets me excited about pro wrestling. This right here. And it wasn't complicated. You just had the perfect actors to make it work. You had the perfect environment to make this work. Okada coming into this match saying, I am the best wrestler in the world. I am the champion of the biggest promotion in Japan. All of you are under me. And yes, like Carlos says in the chat, Okada made Noah his house. This is fantastic. And Okada is not playing around. He has no time for this kid. He's let us know, I got no time for this kid. So when Okada, he does the thing, they do the lockup, and then he pushes the guy in the ropes, and then the ref asks for the clean break. What does Okada usually do, right? He goes tap, tap, tap on the dude's chest, and he backs away, right? Just a little something. It's Okada's signature opening thing, just to taunt the other guy a little bit. He pushes Kiyomiya into the ropes, and what does he do? Does he go tap, tap? No, he wails on him. Because he's got no time, no respect. He doesn't want to play with this kid. He's above him. Messes him up. Okada, though, starts throwing him to the floor because he wants to go mess him up on the floor, but Kiyomiya, he's back in the ring. German suplex by Okada follows. Finally, we're on the floor. He hits the DDT on the floor and another one in the ring. Kiyomiya fights back, but he eats a scoop slam and the flying elbow. Okada goes for the Rainmaker pose, but Kiyomiya stands up to ruin the Rainmaker pose, the camera angle. Fantastic stuff. Okada does not like that. Kiyomiya strikes, takes Okada to the floor, whips him into the rails. Okada then back body drops Kiyomiya over the rail. Okada tries to set him up for something else, but Kiyomiya blocks and suplexes Okada over the barricade. And you know what? That's when you see, when you get the proper angle, there's a riser. We're not even on ground level. The ring is on a riser, like on a stage, a little stage. And the backstage and around the ring as well. But over the guardrail, you see the edge of the stage. Kiyomiya dropped him off the stage. Fantastic bump. And then Kiyomiya hits a running senton over the rail. We get back in the ring. There's a missile drop kick. German with bridge. Okada fights out of a tiger suplex attempt. Hits a flapjack on Kiyomiya. Get a strike exchange, a drop kick by Okada. Flying knee by Kiyomiya. Drop kick by Okada. Spinning Rainmaker follows. Goes for the Rainmaker proper. It's blocked by a knee on the arm by Kiyomiya. And then he starts targeting the arm. Missile drop kick on the arm. Shining Wizard. And another. Goes for a cover. Gets a near fall. I bit. Because I was like, Shining Wizards all around. This is Noah's show. This is Keiji Muto's show. Ends Okada with a Shining Wizard, but no. Short arm lariat by Kazuchika Okada. Kiyomiya dodges the second one. Drop kick by Okada. Rainmaker attempt again, blocked by a standing Shining Wizard. Tiger suplex connects into another near fall. Kiyomiya goes for another Shining Wizard. It's countered into a landslide. You know what happens after that? Rainmaker cover, but Okada breaks up the pin, lifts. He had him beat, but he lifts Kiyomiya off the mat. To a loud reaction from the crowd. They did not like this. What is this, Rainmaker? Kazuchika Okada, what are you doing? He gets him back up on it. He gets Kiyomiya back on his feet. Enziguri, Cobra Flosion, Rainmaker, and does the softest cover to win the match. Okada punctuating the win here, saying, I told you I was above you, that you're not worth my time, that you're not on my level. We didn't even make it to the 30-minute time limit. We ended this match halfway there. I owned you. I own Noah. This is my professional wrestling world. And then Okada steps out and pays the ultimate tribute to Keiji Muto, grabs his belt and leaves. Doesn't stay in the ring to celebrate. Goes straight for the pay window. Fantastic stuff. Fantastic stuff. Now, you can absolutely argue that Noah looked like geeks here. Absolute total geeks. This is your champion. This is your ace. This is Kaito Kiyomiya, the guy that finally inherited the rub from Keiji Muto. That's arguable, though. We can have another discussion about that another time. This is the guy you're banking on. This is your ace, and he just got creamed. It wasn't even fair. Creamed by Kazuchika Okada. This is what I was saying. New Japan has the higher ground. They're the biggest company in Japan. What are you going to do? Negotiate? No, we really want our guy to win. No. That's not going to go that way. Now, the only way you ungeek this situation is if there is another match. Is if you do this again. And next time, Kiyomiya is ready. Kiyomiya is on another level. And maybe there's no titles involved. Or at least maybe one of the titles isn't involved. Get those things out of the way. Because it's no longer about titles at this point. At this point, the most compelling story you can tell in Puro right now is Kaito Kiyomiya building himself up to defeat Kazuchika Okada. And that is the best way to go about it. And it's not done. It's not. The Noah accounts were tweeting pictures of Kaito Kiyomiya in like a temple somewhere. Like he was gotten to so bad by this match that he had to go meditate. He had to go find some spiritual get a spiritual cleanse because he was so taken aback by this. There's so much juice left to this story. It's crazy. You could leave it at this. Don't get me wrong. It could end like this, and it's just like a moment in time. But I would be surprised that a guy like Kazuchika Okada, who is a guy who understands and appreciates pro wrestling and the pageantry and the of pro wrestling and its history, I would be surprised that he would not be able to see how this can mean a long-term benefit for this kid, for Kiyomiya, in another promotion. I think he's got the foresight to be like, yeah, look, if we can make money out of this, and on top of that, this can help elevate the kid, let's go ahead and do it. Because no matter how much of an asshole he was here, of course, this was all work. No matter how much of an asshole he is, or he was in this, he's a professional in his field. He is one of the greatest to ever do it. This match absolutely fucking ruled. I think it's a match of the year. If anyone put this on their match of the year, I'd be fine with this because it was the culmination of something great. And what a story, what a tale. This has all sorts of ammunition, all sorts of juice to keep flowing forward. I loved it. And then we had the main event where Tetsuya Naito defeated Keiji Muto once and for all. Bit of a slow start. No shock here, but, Naito takes him down and works the leg. I mean, this is what you expect, right? Leg focus, mad game. Because our boy Keiji here doesn't necessarily have the fortitude, the gas to go full blown here. He hits. He does the hits. Flash elbow, he does the dragon screws, He even does an STF while Chono, who's in the audience, looks on. Well, not on commentary even. Masahiro Chono. Tetsuya Naito drags him up the ramp. He does the Muda sprint as well. Full Nelson with legs. Combination Capitan, targets the knees. We get a bunch of throwbacks to a bunch of old allies of Muto's during his heyday. Like I said, he's one of a final breed. Tease the moonsault. We never got it. Got figure fours until Tetsuya Naito lands Shining Wizards and a Destino for the win. Bit of an emotional moment as well. And as Naito leaves the ring and lets Mutoh alone, Mutoh says essentially, that one of his contemporaries never had his proper retirement match, not on a grand scale like this, and he challenged Masahiro Chono to enter the ring to fight him one more time. Oh, we're already backtracking on the retirements. I'm not retired yet, pals. And it just so happened that Tiger Hattori was there as well. So Tiger Hattori refereed a match between Masahiro Chono and Keiji Muto in the year of our Lord 2023. A New Japan match on a Noah show. You gotta love it. Anyway, look, Chono does the STF and Muto taps out like whatever. That barely lasted. Didn't even last 2 minutes. That was the show. Look, I like this. I liked, as I mentioned last week, I liked the main event, not the Chono thing. The main event, I liked it a lot more than I expected I was going to. I really liked it more than I thought I would, than I was expecting. I thought it was very good. I thought it was well worked. Is it a phenomenon? But no, it's not going to blow your mind. But there's more than enough storytelling and drama to make it compelling. I think that this was worked perfectly for Keiji Muto. I think Naito was the perfect guy to walk him through it. A near 30-minute match. Could it have been a bit shorter? Yeah. I can sit through only so many elongated figure four spots in a match. But I'm being nitpicky. I thought this was very good. I thought we got something good out of Muto here. I think from all the retirement matches that he did, I believe this one was my favorite. You couldn't have asked for a better send-off if you asked me. Good show. I think it's going to be available soon on Wrestle Universe if it's not already, because it was behind the pay-per-view wall. But I think it's going to be soon available for free on WrestleUniverse.com, Wrestle-Universe.com. I would suggest listening to the Japanese commentary, but a good show. It was a good show, even though, here's the things, right? The opening matches felt like opening matches, but there's more than enough competent stuff and good stuff, and then excellent stuff to keep your attention. If you have to watch anything out of the pre-show, it's the TJPW match, and everything after that sort of builds to a crescendo. Even the Nasawa retirement match. Nothing happened, but it just, you blinked and you missed it. So it's not even offensive. It didn't outstay its welcome. It's just like, let's get this over with. It's absolutely fine. Nice little cool down between the great Noah versus All Japan brawl and the junior heavyweight match. Like a nice little cool down between the two. This was well booked. This is a well put together show. I enjoyed it. You should check it out if you can. You will enjoy it. We are going to go into our final topic this evening, which is the arrival, the preview of the New Japan Cup. Woo! It's New Japan Cup season, baby. Single elimination tournament is going to start this weekend, or wait, not this week. March 5th. Is that the weekend? I don't know. The concept of time is so alien to me. Completely out of my league here. But yeah, this is what we've got. We've got the New Japan brackets right now on screen if you're watching this on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes or on Spotify right now because the video podcast is there available as well. And this is what we have. We have our field all set up here. They're doing the buys again this year, which is something that they did last year. If you're going to do buys, which I don't have a problem with, I think there should be. I think there should be buys in tournaments. Make them make sense. Why is Chase Owens getting a buy? Why is Jeff Cobb getting a buy? Why is Great O'Khan getting a buy outside of the fact that he is the Great O'Khan all hail? Because look, you've got your champions. You've got guys in this tournament who hold belts. And you're like, look, if you're a champion, you should get a buy, right? Hiroki Goto's getting a buy, but not Yoshihashi. Why is that? Kenta's getting a buy. He's the new strong openweight champion. Will Ospreay's getting a buy. Why? Zack Sabre Jr. is getting a buy. He's the TV champ. You know, it's like, just make them make sense. Tama Tonga's the never champion. Like, the champions make sense. But why did Dave Finlay not get a buy? Why is Toru Yano not getting a buy? It's an interesting cup we have set up here. There's a couple of things. Look, you know, we have a couple of things of note here. You know, we have Aussie Open who are involved in this. Kyle Fletcher and Mark Davis. You know, a couple of weeks ago they were tweeting out that they didn't have any bookings anywhere, and then all of a sudden, well, now they're on AEW. Now they're going to be a part of the New Japan Cup as singles guys. That's pretty cool. I don't know exactly how they're going to fare. I would argue that they're not going to fare well at all. But hey, at least they're going to get some dates out of this. We've got David Finlay, who's going to be in this tournament, who I believe is going to be someone to look out for. If there's any connection in the booking between New Japan of America and New Japan proper, Dave Finlay got all of Jay White's heat off of Jay White's Loser Leaves Town match. So you would assume that that means that he's going to be positioned rather strongly moving forward. Otherwise, I think it is look, if Finlay gets knocked out in the first round, it is an absolute waste of Jay White's departure. An absolute waste. Because he feels hot right now. He feels hot. Feels like he's motivated. Like he is getting somewhat of a push. So if you look at his opening brackets, you get Finlay, Tomohiro Ishii. It would make sense for Finlay to get the win over Ishii. And by the way, don't sleep on this match. This is going to fucking rule. Great O'Khan might even be a win for Finlay. Great O'Khan is booked a little strangely. Like sometimes he's a powerhouse, sometimes he loses quite a bit. And if you look at what's on the bottom, like in the bracket right under Finlay, you've got Shota Umino and Yujiro. And, you know, there's no way Yujiro's moving forward. So we got Zack Sabre Jr. and Shota Umino likely moving forward, which hopefully will serve as a match where Shota will be able to wash off the stink of we'll be able to wash off the stink of the match that he had against Tetsuya Naito a few weeks ago, which really wasn't very good. Which will lead us into the quarterfinals, if we're booking this my way, of David Finlay and Zack Sabre Jr. Zack Sabre Jr., two-time New Japan Cup winner, Tournament Zack. If you want, this will either go two ways. Either we will continue with Tournament Zack just plowing through the competition to the finals, which is part of what they do. Zack Sabre Jr. always has great performances in tournaments. That's kind of his thing. Or Dave Finlay pulls off a quote-unquote upset and gets a big win against Tournament Zack, which would help amplify Dave Finlay moving forward. You know, we might see in the semifinals Shingo and Dave Finlay, and I'd be here for that. That's another match that could rule. Because there's no way Shingo's losing to Hanare. Shingo and Tama Tonga could be a lot of fun, don't get me wrong, but Shingo's moving forward. I'm thinking semifinals, David Finlay, Shingo. I could even see Finlay going to the New Japan Cup finals. Probably not Shingo. I mean, if they're serious about David Finlay, right? What's happening on the other side? Well, obviously everyone's like, oh shit, Will Ospreay's there. And, you know, I believe Ospreay's quest in 2023 will be to win the big matches, beat the big guys that he's never been able to get a big win over. That's what he's going to try and do. So, you know, whoever wins between Yano and Mark Davis, Ospreay's got them. I kind of hope it'll be Mark Davis. It'll be nice to see that outside of Ospreay and Yano. I can also understand why they might want to take it easy on Ospreay a bit. Outside of that, Ren Narita, Evil, Jeff Cobb, I kind of see Will Ospreay moving to the semifinals. Up top, that's Sanada, Taichi, Kenta, Naito, Phantasmo, Chase Owens. El Phantasmo is a New Japan Cup of America winner and a guy that they have big plans for. You know, you could argue right now that there is a vacancy for the leadership of Bullet Club. And I've been dropping hints for a while talking about El Phantasmo. I think he's got what it takes. I think he might be the guy. And if anything, he's had a career trajectory that has been extremely similar to another former Bullet Club member, one Kenny Omega. And I still think Bullet Club should be led by a Gaijin. This is a Gaijin faction. They really like El Phantasmo. So they're, you know, one of the big attraction matches to kick this off on the 5th, Naito and Phantasmo. Don't be surprised to see Tetsuya Naito slip in this tournament out the gate and El Phantasmo moving forward. I would like nothing less than El Phantasmo and Will Ospreay in the semifinals. I think that would be fantastic. Now, what do you do at the end? Do you do Will Ospreay versus Shingo, which is a great match, don't get me wrong, but we've seen it a couple of times. Then again, it's a ticket seller. Maybe. You do Will Ospreay versus Dave Finlay. That would rule. Do you do El Phantasmo and Shingo at the end? Sure. We know those guys have great chemistry together. They did wonders with that King of Pro Wrestling bullshit. Maybe they're keeping one in the can, one in the chamber, I should say. It'd rule. El Phantasmo, Shingo in the finals would rule. But I think El Phantasmo and Dave Finlay in the finals would rule as well. They had a great match last year together. Might be shocking at how great it is. Maybe not the biggest headliner final for a New Japan Cup, keeping out the likes of Ospreay and Sanada and Shingo. Keeping those, or Naito, keeping those big names out of the finals might not be the biggest attraction, but if New Japan is serious about getting some new people over, working some new things, I would put some stake in El Phantasmo versus Dave Finlay on this one. Because don't forget then, these guys, either one of these guys gets a shot at Okada. El Phantasmo and Okada, Bullet Club. I don't know, man. There's something here. I don't want to do too much fantasy booking, but there's something here. New Japan Cup is going to be done in a flash, so I'm going to try and follow it as much as possible. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. And it's starting off big on the 5th. Sanada and Taichi and Naito and El Phantasmo. So those are big drawing shows. New Japan will do this to kick off their tournaments. Then on the 6th, the next day, Narita and Evil, Yano and Mark Davis, Dave Finlay, Ishii, Umino, and Yujiro. So, a little more of an undercard there. Maybe not as spectacular, but good stuff. Interesting tournament. I'm glad they're throwing in more of the new guys in here, like Shota, like Narita. These are going to be knockout matches, so it doesn't matter. Like, it's not the same type of level as the G1, where I'm like, why is Yujiro in the G1? This is fine. So we're going to keep an eye on this. I'm excited. Tournament wrestling, man. I love it. It's the best. It is really the best. Just like the end of the weekly wrestling inspection is always the best. There we go. We're going to wrap it up again tonight one more time. Another great edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show in the can. Thank you everyone who showed up tonight to join me live on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes. Hope you enjoyed the ride. If you haven't already, consider liking the video. Consider subscribing to the channel. Consider becoming a member. I will be back on Thursday for the AEW Dynamite review. Again, might be a little later than usual, but we'll be there. If you want my full thoughts on AEW Revolution coming up this weekend, the preview is already right there. I've got all my preview and predictions all set up, either on your favorite podcast application or here on the YouTube channel. You can listen, watch, and enjoy as we get ever so closer. I will be back on Thursday. As I said, join me on Thursday on the Love Wrestling Twitch channel as I join the Between Two Beards dudes to preview AEW Revolution. I'm super busy, but I wouldn't want it any other way. Thank you all again, the A+ audience, to my D-List podcast. Have a great rest of the week, and I'll see you next time.